Okay, so welcome to this first video in the playlist on pharmacology of transporting epithelia. Now, before we begin our study of transporting epithelia, I think the first thing that is useful to discuss is the basement membrane. Because all epithelia sit on this basement membrane, and it's something that generally most people don't ever bother learning about. So we're going to learn about it because a lot of the things we're going to later study will rely on us understanding the basement membrane. So, for instance, in the skin, the basal layer of keratinocytes is bound to the basal membrane by hemidesmosomes. And if we're going to understand how hemidesmosomes interact with the basement membrane, then firstly we need to know what the structure of the basement membrane is. So, basically, what you have is, let's say, some epithelium here. So you have some epithelial cells here. And then underneath them, usually just, if you were drawing a macroscopic picture like this, you might draw it like that. And you've got these epithelial cells here. And I'm not going to say what sort of epithelial cell they are at the moment, I'm just going to leave them as blobs. And then underneath that, basically, is a structure that's often just drawn as basically like a ribbon like this, just a little line, basically, a black line generally, and it's then just usually labelled basement membrane. We are now going to, in this video, explore the structure of this anatomical structure, basically. And it's underneath absolutely every single epithelia you can think of. They all have them, including endothelia, like the endothelia lining the blood vessels. They all have this basement membrane. So let's study it. Okay, so the basement membrane can roughly be divided into two layers. Okay, one layer here and one layer here. And this is the apical side, which means the side facing onto the epithelium. So the epithelium cells, if I've drawn them, basically what I've now done is we're just now looking at this bit, and I've zoomed in on that, and it's now this entire thing here. Okay, so the epithelial cells will be on top up here, basically. Now what we've got is two layers. This top layer, this apical layer, is oh dear, what am I doing? It's the lamina. Oh, sorry, yes it is. It's the basal lamina, that's what it's called. That's why I was writing basal. It's the basal lamina, okay? And this bottom layer is the reticular lamina. So the reticular lamina, okay? And they both are part of this basement membrane, and they're interconnected by certain little connective fibers. So one of the connective fibers that interconnects them is what are known as collagen type 7 anchoring fibrils. So I'm drawing lots of these collagen type 7 anchoring fibrils. So these red things are what we're going to use to denote collagen type 7 anchoring fibrils. So these two layers, lamina basal, or the basal lamina, and the reticular lamina, they are connected by these collagen, and I'll just put type 7, collagen 7, and they're called anchoring fibrils. Collagen is a protein. It's a big long protein structure like this. So it's a linear chain of amino acids, and it's basically it will bind to this bit, and it will bind to this bit, and it'll hold them together. Then there's another important thing that binds these two together, which is fibrillin microfibrils. And I'm going to draw these like this. So I'm going to use this yellow pen, which probably won't show. Oh, it's showed up okay. And it's basically loads of blobs connected together like that. So it's a chain of blobs, basically, like this. And each of these blobs represents a fibrillin molecule. So basically, a fibrillin microfibril is loads of fibrillin molecules connected together in this way. So if I make it a little bit more obvious, we have one fibrillin molecule there, you add it onto another fibrillin molecule, you add it onto another fibrillin molecule, etc. And that creates you a fibrillin microfibril. So one of these molecules is called fibrillin, and when they're together like this, it's called a fibrillin microfibril. And these also form little chains, if you like, which are going to connect this basal lamina to this reticular lamina. Okay, so now let's study what each of these layers is. Well, the reticular lamina is basically just made up of one main structure, which is collagen type 3, which I'll denote blue. And that'll be a running theme. I'll use these colours continuously. So collagen type 7 we'll put as pink, collagen type 3 will try and remain as blue. So this is collagen type 3 here. collagen-free. And basically you just have loads and loads of fibres of collagen-free all packed together to make this one layer that's going to be underneath the epithelium, and that's the reticular lamina made up of collagen type 3. Okay, now all we need to study is the basal lamina. Now the basal lamina is a little bit more complicated than the reticular lamina. The reticular lamina is just collagen type 3, loads and loads of collagen type 3, connected obviously to these type collagen 7 anchoring fibrils and these fibrillin microfibrils. But the basal lamina consists of 2 layers. So long ago people decided that the basal lamina would be made up of another 2 layers. So basically we can split the basal lamina up into 2 layers again, and these 2 layers are basically right next to each other. So the top one, the apical one, is called lamina lucida. Lamina lucida. So it's, when you look at it down in an electron microscope, it looks more sort of a grey colour, whereas the bottom one is called lamina densa, and it looks very, very dark, very, very black down the electron microscope. So it's very electron dense, because that's what an electron microscope shows. It shows you electrons. Okay, so this shows up darker, this lamina densa, this more basolateral layer of the basal lamina. It shows up denser on an electron microscope, and the lamina lucida shows up more sort of clearer, whiter. Okay, so more a grey colour. Okay, so what are these 2 things made up of? Well, the lamina densa is just like the reticular lamina. It's made up of another type of collagen, and unfortunately it's not the same type of collagen. It's a third type of collagen, another type of collagen that we need to make sure. And I will denote another colour for this one. So we'll always denote this type of collagen green, and this type of collagen is collagen type 6. So again, they're all proteins. All the collagens are proteins, but they obviously do have different types of structure. So these are all great big long protein strands, all connected together, and you just need to remember that this one is collagen type 6. And the way we will denote the difference is we'll have them as different colours. So collagen type 6 is this green one up here. Okay, and then above that, the lamina lucida is made up of a different protein. It's not made up of collagen. It's made up of laminins, and of course they're called laminins because they're in the lamina. And laminins sort of look like this sort of structure. Like it always reminds me of tRNA, but you could think of a flower with 4 petals if you like. It's got sort of like 4 extensions like that of it, and basically this. They're a protein, and it's just made up of loads and loads of these proteins, and these are very, very important because hemidesmosomes, which are the things used to connect the epithelial cells to these to this basement membrane, they are going to connect to the laminins, which makes perfectly good sense because, you know, they obviously want to connect to the first layer. They don't want to have to go through all of this to connect to this blue layer. They want to connect to the most apical layer. So these laminins are going to be very, very important when we discuss, especially in the skin. Okay, and a number of diseases can occur because you have mutations, I believe, in these laminins. Okay, so these are laminins. So the basal lamina is made up of 2 layers. The lamina lucida is the apical layer, and it shows up more a grey, sort of lighter colour. It's more translucent under the electron microscope. And then there's the lamina densa down here, which is the more basolateral layer of the basal lamina, and it shows up much denser, much darker on the electron microscope, and it consists of collagen type 6 fibrils. And whereas the lamina lucida consists of laminins. So that pretty much is all I have to say about the structure of the basement membrane. It is really important because, you know, this thing is underneath every single epithelium you can name, and it will become important when we come to discuss the in detail structure of different epithelia.